One of the buzzwords I hear in the publishing industry these days is discoverability. That's changed now. So there are traditional publicists that were in the past largely responsible for discoverability. We called it other things. And now authors are largely now responsible themselves for discoverability.
Yes.
So what's kind of been your experience with discoverability and what works and maybe what doesn't work? Or
I think generosity is a big one. Giving things away for free, just not for necessarily a deeper agenda, but just because you want to bless people. I know that I'm known on the web as someone who's generous, and I think that's part of, in a sense, a part of my brand. But again, just having that kind of content that is totally different, and that you, personally for me, great writing flows from what's inside of you. And so the best thing you can do to be discovered is to spend some time with Jesus, have him change your heart, do new things, and then write about it. Don't try to just superimpose something that you've written to try to fit something else. Be so authentically you on the page that people can't help but discover you because you're so unique, and you've already walked with this unique experience with Jesus.
Oh, I love your value of generosity, because one of the things that we kind of see is to be generous, obviously you have to let go of its opposite.
Right.
And sometimes that's well-intentioned, and we see people that their model is to keep tight control over what they have, as opposed to seeing the value of sampling.
Right.
And spreading your content anywhere online where it can prosper.
Right.
It's like throwing seeds to the wind in good soil, as long as it doesn't tarnish your brand or, reflect poorly on you, that people really need to learn how to kind of let go. And so I really love your emphasis on generosity.
I think, I've heard before that the enemy of the author and anyone trying to promote a ministry is obscurity, not piracy. I think a lot of us, we worry, oh, someone's going to take my words. Well, at this point in the economy that we're in terms of the internet, if someone takes my words and it attributes them to me, then I'm happy. I mean, it's just exposure for me.
Right.
And I do think there's a line between free and non-free, too, that we have to be careful about. We need to be generous, but we also don't need to devalue what we've done. So I also have products and books and things that I sell for actual money because I value what I do, and I also, like everybody else, need to make a living.
Absolutely, yeah. So you learn to think about your product as kind of a continuum of the things that you sample and the things that you sell, and the things that you sell at different ways and mediums.
Right.
Sure. Well, I don't want you to get away without telling us about your latest project, Beautful Battle.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about how you grew into that book and what's going on with it these days.
Yeah, it took a long time to actually write that book because just in the way I pitched it, and it took like 3 years before we even started talking about writing it, which I thought was interesting. So I almost didn't write it because it's a spiritual warfare book. And I thought, well, if I write this book, I'm going to have like this, target on my head, and Satan's going to want to like run after me and take me down. So, and that, that happens. And so I had a really great prayer team just praying me through this whole process. And as the book's been launching this month, the same thing. But I wrote it because my family and I, we lived in France, and we encountered the most overt, frustrating, scary spiritual warfare that we've ever encountered in our lives.
Wow.
And I figured if we can get through that intact and still love Jesus at the end, then I can come alongside other believers all over the world and help them see the battle that they face. And C.S. Lewis says there's two ways you can look at it. You can either dismiss Satan altogether and say he doesn't exist, which is terrible, or you can give him more power than he has. And so Beautful Battle seeks to kind of walk that line in between the two, that Satan does exist, he's naughty, he's trying to take us out, and we are his enemies if we're walking with Christ, but God is bigger still, and his sovereign power and his ability to vanquish that foe is extreme and true. And inevitably, even though we're fighting against an enemy who's been hurt, which makes him a scarier enemy, he ultimately is going to hang out in the lake of fire, and we will ultimately be victorious.
We know how it ends.
We do. We have the end of the story.
Yeah, so obsess on God, don't obsess on evil, but
Right.
respect it and know how it works.
Right.
So who's the book for? Who did you have in mind when you wrote this book?
I was thinking of, it is a spiritual warfare book for women, so sorry.
I can enjoy those books.
You can do it. You can
I enjoy all your
In
books.
touch with your feminine side. I was thinking about the woman who's raising her kids, and she may not be thinking about these things all day long. And not that she should think about them all day long, but she needs to know that there is a battle, and that it's not against the people she sees, against flesh and blood, it's not against her toddler, it's not against her husband that frustrates her, it's against the principalities of the air. And so I wrote it with her in mind, and just to equip her, to help her understand how to be proactive in the battle.
Awesome. Well, we're so proud to have you moved into Faith Village, and your blogs are networked in, and so people can find you, Mary DeMuth, and Write Uncaged, right? So we'll see you around the village.
Thanks.
All right.
I look forward to it. Hi, I'm Mary DeMuth, and I live in Faith Village.